Now in the approach phase, everything looking good. Control is good. 5, Roger, copy. 3, 2, 1.
Hi, this is Charles Butler, host of the Reality Check with Charles Butler. What we try to accomplish on the Reality Check is to bring you information to make you an informed decision maker. People are calling President Trump a racist, an admitted and an avowed white nationalist, and nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, I often point out that, and I have people Google this constantly, that Jesse Jackson gave Donald Trump a Lifetime Achievement Award in 1999 for helping Black Americans.
Yep, that is absolutely correct. That is absolutely true. Jesse Jackson did give Donald Trump a Lifetime Achievement Award in 1999 at Operation Push in New York. Jesse Jackson, Donald Trump also contributed to Jesse Jackson's 84 presidential run and his 88 presidential run. How many people know that? Not many, I bet. And Jesse's not telling, and Al Sharpton certainly won't tell that Donald Trump gave him the startup money for his National Action Network group, the group that he uses to push his backwards agenda. And that's all that I have to say about that before I get sued for slander. Yeah. Anyway, hey, look, we're going to have a great show today. We have a guest and a good friend, my brother from another mother, Mr. Dan Perkins, who authored a trilogy. And actually, I think he said he wrote 4 books on the radicalization of people and Islam and these terrorists who are out here. In fact, it's like I think they read his book to do what they're doing. But anyway, Dan and I are going to talk a little bit about human trafficking at the border and a few other things. Hey, Dan, you welcome aboard, man. How you doing?
I'm fine. Can you hear me, Charles?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yep. Hear you loud and clear.
Good.
Yeah, I saw you came on earlier, but I didn't open up the lines until 1:00. So anyway, so look, what's going on? What's going on, man? When since we talked last, the police chief, what's his name? Police chief of New York, Commissioner of New York, Commissioner O'Neill came out and said that they fired the policeman in the Eric Garner case, and they fired the police commissioner, New York police commissioner O'Neill came out and said, hey, we're going to agree with everyone else, with the courts and our internal findings, that Officer Patello had been instructed on not using this chokehold. So it's I was talking to someone last week about this, and one of the suggestions I always make when they talk about Eric Garner is I say, roll over on your stomach and have your child stand on your back and see if you can breathe. See with the difficulty you have breathing. And it's really interesting because, as a high schooler, I was a wrestler. So, I would always like to get in a position on a guy's back and put my weight. So it would put pressure on the sternum and force that air out. So it's a very uncomfortable feeling. And but I always said that in that particular case, when the guy was saying, I can't breathe, all he had to do was loosen up the chokehold a little bit If the guy started breathing and he stopped resisting, fine. If he started resisting, then you put a little bit more force on it. Simple. You just made. I mean, it's like we was playing with my little brothers. If they said I was hurting them, I quit. I stopped, and I had to learn that because, I wasn't trying to hurt my brothers on purpose. There's nothing I would do to hurt my brothers on purpose. And so if they say, "Oh, you hurt my arm," hey, I'd stop. Period. I mean, hey, I don't know, man. But hey, it is what it is.
That's true.
And the police commissioner.
So took him 5 years. He was on desk duty for 5 years.
Yeah, well, I hope he saved his money, and he'll get employed somewhere else. They'll pick him up. But it's one of those things, man. Like I said, I just have more compassion for people than that. If you say I'm hurting you, unless I'm trying to actually hurt you, I'm all for giving you a break. Seeing if you say if I'm restraining a guy, trying to do a citizen's arrest, and the guy says, "Hey man, I can't breathe." Well, I'm gonna ease up a little bit. Let him catch his breath. But look here. You were talking earlier. You did a couple of interviews earlier. You were telling me about the human trafficking on the border.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about this for the last
Right.
3 or 4 years, and you were talking about there's shots that people take to keep from becoming pregnant. And
right.
What's that all about? So I can get raped, but I won't get pregnant, so that's okay.
What's been happening, but not reported widely in the press, that the physical danger that women and girls face on these caravans is significant. Rape, incest, sold into slavery. So it's so well known in Central America that it occurs. The families will get shots for the wife, aunt, mother, and daughter that will prevent them from becoming pregnant. If they can't get the shots, they buy them the morning after pills so that they can abort anything that might happen. It is well known in the caravans that this happens. And yet, when we listen to the Democrats who talk about free and open borders and they want these caravans to come through, they are not talking about the physical abuse, human trafficking, sexual abuse, and slavery that these women and girls are going through on these caravans. They refuse to talk about it. And the news media is not pressing them on it, so it doesn't get talked about. So it's up to people like me and you, me when I write, and me and you when we talk on your program, to try and help people understand that when the Democrats say there was, quote, no crisis at the border, thousands of young girls and women were being raped by their transporters. And in many cases, Charles, there are situations where the families don't have the money to pay the coyotes, so they pay their way by having sex with the coyotes, and so it's sexual trafficking, it's sexual slavery. All those things don't seem to be a problem for the Democratic Party. They're ignoring them, but the reality is the people who are making the journeys understand and do everything they can to protect themselves from becoming pregnant, because they know that they're going to get raped on the way up, and or they're going to have to sell their bodies in order to pay the fare. And so it just seems to me that it is a very serious problem that the Democratic Party refuses to acknowledge. I have
Right.
not been able to find any of the major candidates who have discussed at all human trafficking, sexual abuse, rape, any of those issues that we just mentioned are taking place on people who are trying to cross the border. Doesn't happen.
Well, that's
That
because
doesn't mean it isn't happening, because it is.
because because these are substantive issues. These aren't issues that are
Mm-hmm.
fly in the pan issues. These are issues that they don't want to talk about when we talk about what Trump said initially. We're talking about bad people. We're talking about rapists. I forget the president's exact quote. I'll look it up. But I said what he's saying is exactly true when he called these people rapists and bad people, and people were like, well, how can he say that? I mean, I get tired of all of the PC. I get tired of people trying to, and that's why President Trump was elected. Let's be clear. President Trump was very right when he said Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Africa, China, the countries of Africa and China sitting there. These aren't the best people who are coming here. If they were, they get on an airplane and fly into one of our international airports and with a visa and come through. No, these are people who are usurping the system. And I tell you, it's bad enough, in my opinion, because I am very anti-immigration until we get our ship in better shape for all Americans. So I am and I've always been very anti-immigration since the 60s, 70s, when I was in college, and I saw these Americans bringing these Indians and Bangladeshi medical students over here, and they overstayed their visas and they became American doctors instead of going back to India and Pakistan and Bangladesh. They stayed here and had very good livings, while Americans who wanted to become doctors were not allowed into medical schools. I could never really understand it, and I still don't understand it. And it pisses me off every time I think about it. But the president Trump, the candidate Trump, was very clear and very accurate when he described these people coming across our border. And, to this day, they still haven't given this man credit for the great job that he's doing on the border. They're not giving him credit for the job he's doing with the economy. And I'm not a Trump surrogate, and I'm not a Trump lapdog. I don't agree with everything that the president does, like with the NFL stuff. I thought he was way off on that. But that border is a dangerous place, and I said this, and I say this because I used to live in San Diego, and I could literally, from my backyard, look right down into Tijuana, and I can tell you that, but this is what I've noticed, and when we used to go to Tijuana or to drive into Mexico, it was always chaos. It was always very chaotic, and it was always chaos and chaotic because the people would jaywalk in front of your cars. They just walk out into traffic. It's like they didn't have any life, or they didn't understand that these cars would kill you, right? And the great thing about getting back to the U.S. side of the border was you had order. You had laws that people respected. And I look at Chicago, man. You can be driving down the street at 30 miles an hour, and some idiot will walk right out in front of your car and expect you to stop. We have over 5,000 people who are hit, pedestrians who are hit here every year, and over 300 that die just from car accidents alone.
So let me read you something. This is from the not so conservative Huffington Post. And it's a story where the source of the information was Fusion Investigations and Amnesty International. Of Central American women and girls are raped crossing into the U.S.
God, that's horrible.
80%. Have you heard any of the presidential candidates on the Democratic Party address that issue? I don't think so. I can't find it anywhere. And so, if 80% of the women and girls that are coming up into the United States,
right,
some of them may not have any medication and may wind up being pregnant and dropping a child here in the United States. But the point is that if these two independent organizations are talking about these kinds of numbers, Amnesty International is a fairly credible organization, and Fusion Investigation seems to be fairly credible. Point is, when you've got collaboration between two separate organizations reporting that 80% of Central American women are going to get raped before they cross into the United States. And the people in Guatemala, El Salvador, Venezuela, all of them who start this journey are aware of the risks that the women are taking and the girls are taking. But they go ahead and do it anyway. And as I said, if they don't have the money, they sell themselves into sexual servitude to pay for it. And some of them die. I don't know how many die. I haven't been able to find that out yet. But the point is that we have a concern about what's going on in various parts of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Yet we've got this border support mechanism in the Democratic Party who thinks there should be no restrictions on the border, and anybody should be able to come in regardless of whatever their criminal records might be or what diseases they might be carrying. But the fact that we have been talking about this in some of the media for 2 years about the rape of women and girls coming across the border, we don't see. Well, we don't talk about it. The Republicans don't talk about it, and the Democrats don't talk about it. But the Democrats want to open the borders to more people, which I would say, in sheer numbers, if you increase the number of people coming, you will increase the physical number of women and girls who will be raped coming through.
Yeah, we will, but that's not a concern for them. That's not a concern.
Pardon me?
That's not a concern for them.
Yes.
So it doesn't make any difference.
Yes.
They're not concerned about the women and children that are being raped, because it's not only women. You're talking about young women, little girls, basically. And I mean,
yes, you are.
And so the question to me is, why would anybody put their child in that situation? Why would we want to have someone in our country who would subject their child? And then, you have these idiots who go, well, they're just trying to get to America. Stay in your own country, make your own country. Could you imagine? This is, some of my thinking. After World War II, we had a lot of refugees after World War II, and if America had tried to take on the refugees and bring all the refugees here, what would that have done to Americans? As a matter of fact, let me digress for a minute. As a matter of fact, we had something called Operation Wetback. Are you familiar with Operation Wetback?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So we had Operation Wetback in the 50s that was implemented by President Eisenhower. And for those of you who are not familiar with Operation Wetback, look it up. And don't Google it. Don't go under Wikipedia. Get some reliable source. History.com does a great job on Operation Wetback, and there are other websites out there. But anyway, it's claimed that the Eisenhower administration sent over 3 million Mexicans back to Mexico who were taking American jobs. So when the soldiers came back from the war, these Mexicans had all the jobs, just like they do today. If you look at a construction job, you look at any construction job in the U.S., and the majority of the workers are Mexican or Latina or whatever you want to call them, but they're not white, they're not black, and they're not Asian. So the question is, when do we start penalizing these people for hiring these folks and hiring them on taxpayer jobs like the O'Hara Modernization Project, $15 billion project? Blacks couldn't buy a job out there on that construction project. They brought in Mexicans from Texas and California to work on that job. And no one said anything. I talked about it on my show. I talked about it because I interviewed people out there. They couldn't get any traction.
Yeah. And you probably never will.
And so like
Right.
they arrested. The thing is, they arrested in Mississippi. They arrested 700 people. Let's say 700 people rounded up. I had a guy tell me. I said, "Well, I don't feel any compassion for these people because they're local people, black and white people, and legal Latina people who are there in that community who can get those jobs now." So my friend texted me back. And he said, "Well, wrong. The county is only 0.03%, 3.7% black." And I said, "No." I went and looked up the demographics of the county. The county's called Scott County. And I said, "No, the demographics are 45% white, 37% black, 16% Latina. That's the demographics. So wrong." And I said, and 200 Americans, black and white and Latina, signed up for those jobs at the job fair. So, and they said, and they have to pay these people. They want to pay them $5 an hour, $7 an hour when these are $14, $15 an hour jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I don't know. The idea that we have jobs in America that Americans don't want to do, service jobs, and that's why we have to import this labor from Mexico. Charles, there's probably some truth in some portions of that, but it's not a total truth. For example, I really see.
Why would you say there's some truth? Ahead. Why would you say there's some truth?
Because I think that in the agricultural part of our economy,
that's not what they're talking
whether
about.
It's in California,
wait a minute. See, that's what pisses me off. As intelligent as you are and as up to speed as you are on this topic, the agriculture has never been the issue. Agriculture is not an issue when we're talking immigration or migrant workers. We've always had very effective migrant worker programs. This is not about the agriculture aspect. So take agriculture out of this. There is no agriculture in the city of Chicago, and we have over 300,000 illegals in the state of Illinois, and I think we have something like 80,000 here in Chicago.
Right. So
they're not picking fruit. Okay, they're on construction jobs. They're driving trucks.
I understand that. I was trying to point out is that there are situations where you can come into the country legally as a migrant worker and work in the agricultural area. But beyond that, if you're coming in and you're taking other jobs that could be held by Americans, real Americans, not illegals, then I have a problem with that. And you're talking about 300,000 in the state of Chicago, in the state of Illinois. I just wonder how many of those 300,000 that are here illegally, or the 80,000 that are in Chicago, how many of them are actually on public assistance?
A number of them.
Spending your tax dollars.
Well, a number of them are on public assistance. That's a complaint of a number of citizens. Citizens are standing up and complaining to these politicians who feel that immigration and criminal justice reform are what people in the city want for their districts. I had a little conversation with Michael Steele and asked him, because last week, I don't know if you saw the video where they told Sharpton to go home. He was a phony, to go back to New York. Did you see that video? Well, anyway,
I did not see it, but I heard about it. But that was only a small part of what had transpired during that event. Elroy Sailor kicked off the event, a good friend of mine. Michael Steele spoke at the event. He talked about what he tried to accomplish with the early steel
administration. So I texted him. I said, "Well, what did you guys accomplish?" And he said, "Well, we released felons. We got felons released early, and we tried to reduce the recidivism rate." And so I texted him back, and I said, "Okay, do you really think that black and brown people really want these criminals back in their community?" One. Two, who cares about the recidivism rate? It's 80%. At minimum, it's 80% always. Three, what state government contracts did you give to black and brown businesses? That's what I want to know. I haven't heard from him. See, because we're talking about money. These politicians, all these black and brown politicians want to talk about are the criminal element in the community and poverty. That's what they want to talk about. They don't want to talk about prosperity. Where are the jobs? People don't want to be on public assistance. Barack Obama used to brag about having 30 million people on food stamps. These people didn't want to be on food stamps. They want to be able to have a job and go out and eat the way they want to eat, do what they want to do, not count on the government to send them a damn check.
I absolutely agree with you. I think that's one of the things that's going on in the unemployment rate is that there are more and more people who dropped out of the labor force looking for something to do and couldn't find a job doing anything. They dropped out. So they weren't counted in the quote unemployed. Now that the economy is producing hundreds of thousands of jobs a month, people are coming out of the shadows, if you would, and looking for work, because I agree with you. They want to have the ability to make their own decisions. When you depend upon the government makes the decisions for you, and you have no say-so. And I think that that's a fundamental differentiation between the United States and many other countries around the world, is that the people want to, and by and large, get the opportunity to make their own decisions. Now, we got a lot of red tape and a lot of bureaucracy involved in our governments, both state, federal, and local. But Mr. Trump has done a magnificent job of cutting back the federal bureaucracy. He needs now to come back on the head counts and start reducing the costs. But I really do believe that people. Now, I would ask you the question: since President Johnson declared his war on poverty, the story that I've heard, Charles, is that the federal government hired over 100,000 social workers who went around the country convincing black women that they didn't need the husband in the house.
I believe that.
The government's going to take care of them.
I saw them in my neighborhood. They came around.
And so we took away.
Wait a minute. They came around when the husband was at work. They came around when the husband was at work and knocking on the doors, telling these women that they could get almost as much money, if not more money, than their husband was bringing home every week, which was true. If they get rid of the husband.
Yep. If they would get rid of the husband.
So in my neighborhood, we went from a neighborhood where every household had a father, mother and father, to within about 5 years, I would say 50% of the households were without a father, including mine, including my own home. My mother went absolutely berserk talking about how the government is going to take care of us. And the government never did, of course. But I've always had an ardent disdain for the government because it set these women, you know what it was. See, black women experienced this kind of Me Too thing long before white women in their Me Too thing. Okay. And because black women have always been part of the labor force. See, black women have always worked and had to work to make ends meet for the family. White women, a lot of white women just did not. The majority of white women just did not work. To see a working white woman was unusual. So I remember when I went to work in the private sector back in the early '80s. An older guy pulled me aside. He said I was going with a lot of different girls. He said, Charles, get you one that's got a good job. He said, because all of them pretty much the same. They're all crazy. He said, get you one that's got a good job. And you bank her check. You live off your check and you bank her check and you invest in real estate. That's what he told me years ago. And that's exactly what I did. I didn't get a wife, though, but I did invest in real estate. But this whole Me Too thing and this attitude about men. See, we have this thing. There's something called misandry, and it's women's hatred of men that's going on, and it's very prevalent.
Right.
It's very destructive. You saw it when Judge Kavanaugh was being confirmed. It's like, don't, whatever you do, believe the woman. She's telling the truth. The guy never tells the truth. And who cares about the guy anyway? Who cares if he's wrong? He's a white guy. So, he doesn't have any rights or any feelings. And this is his system. He goes on and on and on, this hatred of men, and especially white men when it comes to opportunities and business and things like that. And I think one of the reasons we talk about Republicans and the 2018 race, we lost a lot of seats. What people don't talk about in that, Dan, is that Republicans ran a lot of women, and women just don't win a lot of races. There are more women than there were before, but women tend not to vote for women. They really would rather have a man running. And Republicans had an inordinate amount of women running for the Congress. And they lost. 2 men, Democrat men. So, but nobody talks about that because that's not politically correct. But anyway, my friend.
Well, okay. So that we got a little off track from our
let's tie that up. But let's tie that up because
slavery
we beat that horse. I mean, the bottom line is nobody's talking about it, and nobody's going to talk about it.
Right.
And it is real. And, those numbers are very high. They're not even, and they're very close, 80%. I mean, so 8 of every 10 women who are trying to come up here are being raped. It's just incredible. It's incredible and horrible.
No,
it's horrible.
Women but I think what's also important, equally, if not more so, about women are young girls. Young girls.
Yeah.
Are being raped.
Yeah.
So it's a dangerous journey, but it's a dangerous journey anywhere in the world. It's amazing to me, Charles. I don't understand the Mexican government. When you fly into Mexico from Africa, and you present your passport, and you don't speak the language, and you go up and you leave the airport, and somehow you get transported up to the border, and you stand on the border looking for an opportunity to come in illegally. Where do they get the money to fly from Africa to Mexico? I don't know whether it's Africa, whether it's Saudi Arabia, whether it's North Korea. I mean, think about it, Charles. How does a person get from China to the U.S.-Mexican border? How does a person from North Korea get from there to the Mexican border? But they're coming. Where do they get the money to make that journey? How are they getting there? I don't understand why the Mexican government is not looking at say, why are people from North Korea and China come and come, and in order to get into the country, they have to have papers. But for some reason, when they get to the U.S. border, they don't have any papers. I don't understand what the corruption must be in the Mexican government to allow that to happen.
Well, I tell you one thing: Trump stopped
Because
it.
I think it's
Trump's put a big hold on all of that, and that's why they don't want Donald Trump in office, because he's getting things done and he's holding people accountable.
right. So let's talk about something that happened over the weekend, and I get your viewpoint on it. In an extremely rare occurrence, the Ninth Circuit, or I call it the Ninth Circus, which is in San Francisco, court said that Planned Parenthood and other women's health organizations can no longer feed at the Title X trough and perform abortions. They had to choose. And the Planned Parenthood and other groups filed suit against the Trump administration and their rules, and they lost on Friday. Now, they immediately lost, and the commentary from Planned Parenthood was not only the fact that they were not going to take Title X money to pay for abortions, but that women, and Black women in particular, were going to be adversely affected by this law. Now, we know that the Black women have a much higher percentage of the total number of abortions versus their race than any other group of people in the United States. So what do you think is going to happen if they can't go to Planned Parenthood to get, quote, birth control called abortion for Black women? What are they going to do?
Are we talking birth control or abortion? You said both of them.
Well, no, what I'm saying that I should be more specific. My belief is that in many parts of our country, including the Black communities, that birth control is abortion. That women who get pregnant see birth control through abortion as opposed to terminating a pregnancy. It's just another form of abortion. And abortion is another form of birth control, as opposed to taking the life of a child. So and it's clear that the Planned Parenthood people who have put the majority of their centers in Black communities, and Blacks have the highest actual number of abortions and the highest percentage of abortions compared to the population. But my point is, if the Black women have seen abortion as simply a matter of another alternative to birth control, the pills or whatever, if that option is not available to them, what do you think they're going to do?
I don't know.
And if you don't want to comment, that's fine.
I have no idea. I have no idea what they're going to do.
Okay.
I think they should. They'll
Okay.
probably be more concerned and more serious about using birth control methods than using abortion as a form of terminating a pregnancy. Yeah. So that's what I
Yeah,
see.
you know, I guess the issue is that if Black women they're not prohibited from getting abortions. They can still have them. They're just going to have to figure out how to pay for them. If they can't afford abortions, and they're going to go to the alternative form of birth control with pills or whatever, or backroom abortions, maybe they'll come back. I don't know. But it's a significant change that disproportionately affects Black women more so than any other group of people in the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that they'll just be more careful about having about birth control, than than an abortion as a end all and be all. That's what I think. That's what I think, Dan. Hey,
Okay. Okay.
yeah, I wanted to before we got a few minutes here. Wanted to. I have you followed at all this professor at New School who was accused of being a racist for using the N word in discussing uh, 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 an essay by James Baldwin?
No, I have not read the essay, but I've heard about him, but I've not read the essay.
Well, there was a professor at the New School in a graduate course who was she used the N word in class in talking about and quoting James Baldwin's essay called "The Creative Process" to her class at the New School in New York. Are you familiar with the New School in New York?
Absolutely, sure.
Okay. So her name is Sheck, and they said she'd asked several students how the 2016 documentary about the writer and civil rights activist, I'm Not Your Negro, I have that. In fact, I saw it several times, and I have the DVD, altered Baldwin's actual quote in which he used the racial slur. A graduate student who, like Sheck, is white had objected to her language. See, here we go. More white people talking about what's racist. I had somebody, that's what black people are talking about. How are all these white people trying to tell us what racism is? I mean, you're talking about being offended. You're talking about being angry. I'm telling you, Democrats do not understand that Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden cannot tell black folks what racism is. They're not qualified.
They sure as hell try to speak like black
Oh,
people.
they do.
On
Oh man,
occasion, don't they?
and they try to speak for black people, and black people aren't buying it. That's why you have all these black folks who are supporting Donald Trump. But nobody really
Mhm.
wants to talk about all that. But
So I based on what you said, I have a question for you,
mhm.
and I want to be sensitive, but I want to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
What is the difference between calling somebody a racist and the N word?
Well, there's a big difference. One's a racial slur.
Racist isn't a slur?
No,
No.
no. Historically, the N
Calling
word.
the President of the United States a racist? Calling the President of the United States a racist is not a racial slur?
No, it's not a slur. I wouldn't call it
Is
a
that what
slur.
you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't call it a
Then
slur.
what is it?
It's a. I would call it an accusation. I would call it an opinion. I wouldn't call it. It's an opinion.
It's not a term of endearment,
The
right?
the big difference is the N word has historically been a racial slur. Being called a racist is pretty much of no value. It's like being called a hunky. When I call you a hunky, if I called you a hunky, what does that really mean to you? Nothing. It has no historical validity. It has no hurt. It has no meaning. So the N word.
Then explain to me why so many of the Democratic candidates, whether they be white or black, are referring to Donald Trump as a racist.
Well, that's because that's an opinion. That's an opinion. It has nothing to do with if they called him. Let's see. If they called him, what would be a word? What's Donald Trump's ethnic
Hunky?
makeup? No, hunky doesn't mean anything, man. Doesn't mean anything to white people to be called a hunky. I mean, what does that mean? It means foreigner for one. But hunky, I mean, white folks don't pay any attention to that. Because see, so what I did, I always use reverse tricknology.
But wait. So wait just a minute.
Go ahead.
Let me follow that.
Yeah, we got 12
So
minutes.
are you saying that black people and white people don't give a crap about the use of the word racist?
It's a description. It's one person's opinion of what another person is. The N word is more personal. The N word, it has historical, emotional ties. That's one of the few words I can knock a white boy out with if he calls me that and get away with it. I can knock a white person out for calling me the N word and not be arrested. And if I am arrested, go to court and beat it every time because he called me the N word. Now, don't ask me why. I'm not going into all of that. I can just tell you that that is one word that can get a white boy's ass kicked, and I don't have to defend why I kicked his ass. Okay. Now there are other words. They don't mean anything. They just don't mean anything, man. So you can go all day like hunky. What does hunky mean? This means foreigner. Who cares? Yeah, you called me a foreigner. I mean, it doesn't mean anything to most white folks. They don't even know what it's supposed to mean. It's like, you hunky. What? I just, me and my buddies, we go, what does that mean? Now, the N word, everybody knows what that means. Everybody knows the emotional stigma attached to that. So as I was telling you before you cut me off, the last time I was called that word, I was in the Gold Coast about 2 years ago. And this white guy stopped in front of me. I was motioning this white guy across, who was crossing the street. He stops in front of my car and starts texting. So I beat the horn, and he called me the N-word. And when I got through telling him who was truly the N in this discussion, he wanted to apologize. He came over to apologize, shake my hand. I said, no, I will not shake your hand. You're an N, and your mother was an N. I said, you thought that word had power over me, but it doesn't have any power over me because I know who I am, and I know who you are, and you are an N, sir, truly an N. Because, see, Steve McQueen, I remember reading something about Steve McQueen back in the 60s when I was a young boy. And they said Steve McQueen had a niggardly disposition. And I'm going, okay, I pull out the dictionary and, okay, look up what the word meant. I'm like, okay, good. Didn't mention black people, didn't mention black Americans, didn't mention Negroes. When you look in the word, see, I grew up in a very racially charged area. And so when we would call that word, my mother said, go look it up in the dictionary. It doesn't say anything about Negroes or colored people. So we'd go and I look it up. It didn't. Today it does. And see, these black people are so stupid today that they let these publishing companies get away with that. Just like they let Hollywood get away with all their racist media. Do you realize, Dan, that black on white crime is only 12%, and white on white crime is 84%. Black on black crime is like 86%. Black on white is like 14%. So you basically commit crimes against people who you're around. But if you look at Hollywood, right, it's like black people are just out trying to kill white people and rape white women. And, we're always the bad guy. But that's what Hollywood was built on. They said they couldn't make fun of the poor Irish, so they picked on the blacks. Mm-hmm. They needed the poor Irish to go to their movies. That's what's in the Hollywood legacy and history of these, these studios. But I can tell you one thing that really interested me. And that's looking at Gone with the Wind. And when you look at Gone with the Wind and you look at the roles that the slaves had in Gone with the Wind, they were very dignified. Now you have to remember, and people don't really talk about this, but poor white trash. What did Hattie McDaniels tell the girl who's going? Don't get around that poor white trash, girl. You stay away from that poor white trash. So. Poor white trash was below black folks, colored folks, and Negroes, and but that that's yeah. I mean anyway, Hollywood.
So you got to go back to my question. You got to go back to my question.
What's that?
My question is, what does the black community think, and the white community? But let's since you're black, we'll talk about the black community. What does the black community think when they hear, regardless of their political persuasion, that all of the Democratic candidates are referring to Donald Trump as a racist?
I keep telling you that. I keep telling you,
Wait,
and I've told you that black folks are not buying into white folks defining what a racist is. And most black people that I talk to say that Donald Trump's not a racist. Now, this is really interesting because last weekend I was with some friends, very weekend before last now, very educated, very politically astute, and they said, "Well, you know, Charles, Donald Trump is a racist." And I go, "Why do you think he's a racist?" And they said, "Oh, he's a white nationalist." I said, "Whoa, wait a minute. First of all, get to the racist part. Define that for me. What has he done that's racist?" And they point out the birther stuff, and then they go to the Central Park stuff. I said, "There's nothing racist about that. He may have been outspoken on the birther stuff. He was totally wrong. But did it have anything to do with race? No, it was about Obama. Well, he only did it because he's black. I say, no, he did it because it was Barack Obama, and Barack Obama's birth certificate had a lot of inaccuracies in it. Like on the birth certificate was the hospital that didn't exist. I mean, come on. That's just the beginning to start with when you start to decipher this document. I said, and Alan Derkowitz was talking about that, and so I said, so I just don't see black people buying into the narrative that Donald Trump is racist. They can yell it from the rooftops, but I can tell you that most black people that I talk to don't think Donald Trump's a racist. And I was in the barber shop a couple of weeks ago, and there were a couple of guys who said Donald Trump was a racist, and they got shouted down. They got argued down. And people were like, well, give me an example. Tell me how he's a racist. And they go, it was no. You're going around calling this man these names. You need to, step up to the plate. That's what people were saying. Hey, man, look.
so you're saying that so if it doesn't mean anything to the black community,
no, it does mean something.
Why
it's
do they
just that it's
continue
not
to-
true. It's just that it's not true. It does mean something. I didn't say it didn't mean anything.
so that them calling Donald Trump a racist in general in the black community demeans him. Is that a fair statement?
Say that again. Say that again.
In the black community, in black community in general, when the politicians call Donald Trump a racist,
Right.
to some unspecified number of people in the black community, it resonates with them. They agree.
Yeah, but very low information people, man. Low information people who hate Donald Trump. There are people out there who suffer from Trump derangement syndrome, TDS, and they're going to always suffer from TDS. I have a buddy, very educated, very worldly person. He sends me this stuff on Donald Trump, and I had to just tell him, there's nothing that you can say to me about Donald Trump that's going to change my mind. So why don't you just stop texting me? Because I'm going to stop opening your text. They just, I just can't take it. I mean, you're lying on the guy, and I'm just not going to deal with it.
Did he stop?
Yeah. Because I quit.
Okay.
I quit opening the.
I'm trying to figure out, Charles, as we get closer and closer to the primaries and then the general election, how important will the race issue be in the election?
It'll be very important. It will be very important. Yes, but at the end of the day, Trump needs some black people around him advising him, other than these damn pastors, as to how to reach out to the black community. Because what white people don't understand is that black people are not looking to black pastors for any damn thing. And that includes salvation. Because we view them as jackleg, chicken-eating preachers. Hello?
I'm glad you said that instead of me.
Well, I'm just telling the truth. I'm just telling the truth, baby.
I know. You've talked about that before on this show, and that's fine. I wonder how effective. Some people are now saying that racist has become such a used term
Overused.
that its effectiveness,
Overused.
overused term, its effectiveness is diminishing
Totally.
rapidly.
Has diminished. Let's be clear. Not diminishing, has diminished. Black people certainly aren't paying attention to what white people are telling them what racism is. Did you hear me say that earlier when we first started? Did you hear me say that when
Yes,
we
sir.
first
I
started?
did. Yes,
That's
sir.
it. Black
I was
people are
there.
tired of looking at MSNBC and all these white talking heads talking about how racist Donald Trump is. Somebody was on TV last week, and they said, and this black person said, "I am tired of white people trying to tell me how I should think about race." I'm telling you, man, these people don't
Did they shut
understand.
her off?
No, no. These people don't understand it. MSNBC and CNN and these other liberal outlets that black people are just tired of their stuff. It's like Al Sharpton. Al Sharpton got shouted out last week, and they were like, "Hey, man, take that phony stuff back to New York. Get out of here." And Al said, I knew that would be Trump. So they told us that'd be Trump supporters out here. And people were yelling, get your phony behind back to New York. Hey man, I'm serious. Serious, dude.
I understand.
Hey, look, we
We're
gotta
out of time,
go.
bud.
We are totally out of time, man. I ran over and didn't close it out. Dang it. That's okay. But anyway, it kicked in. Hey, look, thanks so much for being with me. And man, I tell you, I hope I was able to share some light with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you're helping me understand that the use of, and I know we're running further over, but the use of the racist word is not as powerful as it might have been. It wasn't overused in the black community. That's all.
Well,
that's what I was trying to find out. I appreciate that.
There's no justification. People can't find any justification. People are saying, "Tell me where Donald Trump's racist." Don't tell me he's racist because he called out Obama's birth certificate. Because people say I have questions with his birth certificate. So this is what we're dealing with today. We're not really dealing with people who aren't aware of what's going on. You're dealing with people who, saying, point out where this guy's racist. Tell me, what's he done? He's calling out Elijah Cummings. He should call out Elijah Cummings. Elijah Cummings, his district is a war zone. I've said the same thing. I've said the same thing here time and time again, my friend. Hey, look, my friend. Yeah, I'm going to get off. I'm going to do a little writing.
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to send something to you today and see what you think. But as always, thank you for being with me, man. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Take care, brother.
Okay, you too, brother. Bye-bye. Hey, look, folks, we're going to zing on out of here. And we'll be back tomorrow with Frank Venucio. So let's tee it up. Boom, boom. Banana, banana, banana. Banana, banana, banana. Boom, 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 boom.